Make sure that the attendees don't run away.
Yes, sir. Sure. Good afternoon, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you
Start
so
now.
much for joining us today. I'm Sanjana Mohanty from the Women Entrepreneurship Platform team at Niti Aayog. Before we begin our session, I'd like to tell you a little about WEP. Women Entrepreneurship Platform is Niti Aayog's flagship initiative to catalyze the entrepreneurial ecosystem for women. It is envisioned to be an aggregator platform that solves for the information asymmetry faced by women entrepreneurs. We achieve this by connecting women entrepreneurs to experts and ecosystem players across different domains. And in this regard, WEP focuses on funding and financial assistance, taxation and compliance support, entrepreneur skilling and mentorship, incubation and acceleration connects, community and networking, and marketing assistance. The WEP's portal enables women entrepreneurs to find the right kind of support and helps them grow their enterprise, but something that far too frequently and commonly takes a backseat is their own health. WEP Cares is a series to promote awareness about health issues specifically related to women. And we're gathered here today for the first session on healthy bones. We have with us today a very senior, experienced, and extremely accomplished orthopedician, Dr. Rajesh Malhotra. He is the head of the orthopedic department and the chief of the JPN Apex Trauma Center at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences in New Delhi. Dr. Malhotra has written 16 books, over 50 chapters in books, and he has over 600 publications. He was also awarded the BC Roy National Award for being an eminent medical teacher in 2014. He will walk you through the issues that arise with women's bones, the do's and don'ts for your bone health, and at the end of the session, he will also take your questions. I request all attendees to drop their questions in the Q&A section, and without wasting more time, I would like to hand over the session to Dr. Malhotra. So, Dr. Malhotra, if you can show me your screen, we are good to begin.
Great, Sanjana. Thank you very much. I want to thank WEP for giving this opportunity to interact with people and doing which we really love. And I hope the next 40 minutes or so you enjoy as much as I am enjoying speaking with you. And I think it's something which is extremely important. So let's get started. I'm going to talk about the healthy bones. And before we take it any further, we would like to give you the outlay of this talk. The outline is we'll talk about the importance of bones. We'll talk about the common problems related to bone, the red flag signs which should have you worried for certain bone related diseases, decode some of the myths about bone health, and tell you how to keep your bones healthy. Now, what do our bones do? We all know that we are, imagine if you had no bones, you just crumple and fall on the ground. We are upright because of the bony structure. We are able to move around, do our work, and of course, the bones protect the vital organs. And they do another very important job, which is they act as a bank or a reservoir for calcium. And calcium is such an important ion. It's needed for all body functions, including the proper functioning of heart, brain, nerves, everything, muscles. So, in case there is a deficiency of calcium, there is a reserve from which the body can remove the calcium and let the vital processes go on. So, what is the burden of major conditions related to bones? The WHO has identified four main conditions apart from trauma. So I'm not talking about trauma here, but other than the accidents and fractures, there is osteoporosis, osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, and low back pain. And this would be a gamut of conditions which would affect a majority of the patients and the majority of the population. So let's talk about the osteoporosis. Now, many of you might be knowing about osteoporosis, but I think this picture says it all. So if you have, when you're young, this is what your normal bone looks like. This is how it looks. And when you lose bones, they become osteoporotic. It becomes like this. So you can see that all these perforations, they become very big, and all these connections are gone. And you can imagine that if I were to put some pressure on this, while this may sustain, if I put any pressure on this, the bone will just crumble. The other condition is osteoarthritis, and I'm sure all of you have seen around you some patients who have degeneration of the joints, of the hip, of the knee. Knee is particularly common. It's a condition where the cartilage, which is acts as a shock absorber between the ends of the bone, it gets completely degenerated, and the patient is walking with bone on bone. And that can be a very disabling condition, as you can see here, with big deformity, difficulty in walking, and severe pain and disability. Now, when do you think that a knee pain is really sinister? So we have something called red flag signs. So after a certain age, if you get pain in the knee, you think it is osteoarthritis. Maybe my joints are wearing off. But you should get worried if there's a huge swelling, if you have fever, if you have redness over the knee, if you have severe pain with inability to move, if you have morning stiffness, or it involves the multiple joints, or it has got other constitutional symptoms like fever, loss of appetite, weight loss, you should see a doctor. Now, what is good for your knees and what is bad for your knees? Now, if you are not overweight, it's good. Walking is good. Strengthening your muscles around knee by quads exercises is good. Keep them moving. That's the best thing. Avoid prolonged sitting with your knees bent, and then doing some aerobic exercises is also good for your knees. On the other hand, the most important factors which damage your knee are your obesity, the overweight, or injury to the knee. So all those athletes who jump from the height or who sprint and land heavily on their feet, and they damage their knees all the time. And these repetitive injuries called osteoarthritis. Going up and down the stairs frequently, ramps, squatting, sitting cross-legged, sitting on the floor, and excessive driving are the other causes which cause pain in the knee and are generally detrimental for your knees. Many of you would have seen this arthritis. So this is a classical example. This is rheumatoid arthritis, which causes severe deformities in the hand and makes it very difficult for a person to work. And that unfortunately occurs at a very young age. And it's usually the young females who are more commonly affected. And many times we get 20-year-old patients who are bedridden because their both hips, both knees, both hands, both shoulders are so badly damaged that they cannot even walk. And remember, the key lies in early diagnosis and early treatment. And I would be very concerned about an inflammatory arthritis and consider that it's not an ordinary pain when the patient is having morning stiffness, which is lasting more than 1 hour, multiple joint pains, young age, and symmetrical involvement. And mind you, the inflammatory arthritis is not about destruction of the joints. It does damage your internal organs also. It can affect your heart, it can affect your lungs, and it can actually reduce the longevity of life. So remember that. Low back pain is another common condition. I told you that is can be because of the problem in the bones, in the disc, spinal cord, and nerves, and as well as the muscles and ligaments of the back. Now, what you see on your left is the normal spine X-ray, and you can see this is what we call the spondylitis or spondylosis. This occurs in the most mobile parts of the joint because you would know that if you move apart too much, then only the wear and tear will occur. So our chest is contains the dorsal spine or the thoracic spine that hardly moves, so you don't get spondylitis there. On the other hand, your neck and the low back, which move very frequently, cause a degenerative spine and consequently cause pain and difficulty in walking. This is just one tip for you to see when you stand straight, you are putting a weight of about 4 kg on your low back. As you keep on tilting, say by 15-degree forward, the load becomes 3 times. It is 30-degree forward, it becomes more than 4 times. 45 degrees forward, it becomes more than 5 times. And if you bend forward for 60 degrees, then your load of the sun becomes more than 6 times. Now, this is a problem which you see on your right, is what very tall people often do. They just stoop forward. This also happens when people sit and stoop forward to do their work, particularly if they are do a desk job. And all these things can contribute to the backache. So remember, for young people, the most common cause of these aches and pains is a bad posture. Remember that. And when I worry about a low back pain, when I down the leg, what we in common parlance called as sciatica. If you're having fever, loss of appetite, loss of weight, you start losing sensations, you have weakness of any muscle, or have no control over your bladder and bowel. That's a serious concern, and you must see a doctor immediately. Now we come to osteoporosis. Now osteoporosis has also been called the stepmother of all women, because the 80% of people it affects are women, and the number of people affected worldwide are actually close to 250 million now. And as you will see, as you keep on getting older and older, the proportion of people with osteoporosis keeps on getting larger and larger. And then the osteoporosis causes every fracture in no more than 3 seconds. There's a one fracture every 3 seconds. So imagine the magnitude of the problem and the kind of problem which osteoporosis causes. So if somebody just snatched your bag and ran away, you will just run after that person and make noise. But here is a thief. It's called the silent thief, because you may lose all the bone in your body. I mean, majority of it. And by that I mean the strength in the bone, and not even know it, because osteoporosis may occur without causing any symptoms. So it is called a silent thief. So the first time you may come to know about osteoporosis is when you get a fracture, and then the doctor realizes that your bones have become very weak. Now let's look at the magnitude of osteoporosis again. The risk of a woman uh, getting an osteoporotic fracture is more than the combined risk of her having a heart attack, stroke, or a breast cancer. So you can imagine the chances that a woman or a lady will suffer an osteoporotic fracture in her life is more than the risk of any of the other serious illnesses. Now let's discuss about what actually is happening to your bone. The bone is not dead. Bone is alive, and it has got its own army. In fact, two armies which work, in unison and yet at cross purposes. Now, there is an army of cells which are called osteoblasts, which are like army which makes bone, which deposits bone, and there is an army of cells which removes bone. So, suppose I had a very small crack or a defect here that needs to be repaired. That repair will start when this army of osteoclasts or the bone removing cell comes here. It will eat out and turn it into a pit. And that will be followed by an army of cells which will fill up that defect. So you see here, the bone is being removed by these cells. It has created a pit here, and these cells come, they start filling it up. Gradually, they fill it up, and then it goes back there. It looks a very systematic way, and that way, bone can actually change its shape. It can change itself according to the need. If the calcium is required in the body, these cells will come and take out some bone from here and release the calcium in the blood, so that the heart keeps on working, the nerves keep on working. And this is normally, in the absence of disease, a very well functioning system. Now, what happens in osteoporosis? Unfortunately, this process of digging out the bone for pitting takes 3 weeks. So these cells are very efficient. This army is very well armed with its equipment. It just comes out and digs out a hole in the bone. But that takes only 3 weeks. But the army which fills up these holes takes 3 months. So normally it's a balanced process, but because a very small percentage of units in the body are undergoing this. But what happens if, because of a disease or medication or menopause, this becomes overactive? So if you have more of these cells digging out pits and less of these army which has to fill it up, you can imagine what will happen. So imagine that the road outside your house is being dug up. So you understand that some people will come and dig up the holes, and then this next set of laborers will come and fill up those defects or the pits on the road. However, it so happens that the people who have come to dig up are about 100 people. So they come and they dig everything and go away. And the people who have come to fill in, they are only 10 or 15. So you will be left with a road which is littered with the potholes, and you will not see the intact road, and the integrity of that road will be seriously compromised. And that gives rise to the picture which I showed you right in the beginning. So on your left is somebody who's trying to build the bones, and on your right is somebody who's trying to break, and they work together normally because they are armed equally efficiently. But then something like osteoporosis, particularly say at the time of menopause, it's almost like putting a dynamite to break a huge, create a huge defect here, which will take a very long time for these cells to fill up, and the bone remains vulnerable and weak and can fracture. So women have rapid bone loss from 50 to 70 years of age, and after 70 years of age, this men and women who both suffer from it. So on your left is the spine. This is a vertebra, the backbone, and look at its structure. And look at this lady's bone, which is suffering from osteoporosis. So no wonder by the weight of your body, these vertebrae are going to get compressed and collapse. And I'll show you what that leads to. Of course, our diet has got a big role to play. Just as this kind of diet will cause a heart attack. A diet which is bad for your bones will cause a weakening of the bones and a fracture. And the coffee, for example, I mean, it's all right to have one odd cup of coffee in a day, but if you are a coffee drinker who drinks 8 or 10 coffees in a day, it is known to give rise to loss of calcium in the urine and cause weakening of the bone. We have now both kinds of diseases. We have malnutrition. Somebody who doesn't take enough calories will get weakening of the bones, weakening of the muscles, wasting of the whole body. Somebody who's overnutritious or obese or overweight will wear out the knee joints. So that there is the importance of having the balanced diet and the proper kind of lifestyle, which is important. Anytime you are prescribed a medicine, particularly if you are a middle-aged lady or perimenopausal, you must ask your doctor whether that medicine is going to affect your bones. And this is a chart which shows you what is good for your bones and what is not. So I told you about the coffee, that's a caffeine. If you have been given steroids for any use, if there is a family history, if your mother had a hip fracture or an osteoporosis fracture, or she stooped forward, had a hunchback, then the chances are that in your old age you're going to have the same, and the same is holds true for your daughter. And then of course the smoking, alcohol, and then of course the age, because with advancing age your bones become weak. On the other hand, because it happens around menopause, you get deficiency of female hormones. So if you have been given female hormones for some other reason, it may have somewhat protection or something similar in action to estrogen can help you. Then certain drugs, and if you are, if you have gained weight after puberty, then it can also strengthen your bones. And then of course, if you have had if you take milk, and if you have had an early menarche and late menopause, means a larger period of your life you were menstruating, then the risk of osteoporosis becomes less. So this shows excess, which is ACCESS, which is the risk factor for osteoporosis, which enumerates alcohol use, corticosteroid, low calcium, low estrogen, smoking, and sedentary lifestyle. So this is how essentially we form our bones. When we are born, the first 25 years or so, we build bone, right? So it's not when you get old that you have to worry about your bones, take milk, take calcium. It starts here because you achieve a peak here. This is partly determined by your genetic constitution. But then if you have good lifestyle during active growth, you get a higher peak here. Because once you peak, then you lose about 1% of your bone every year till that time you reach the menopause. When the menopause occurs, that's the starting of danger for bone in women particularly, and then they keep on losing bone after that. So sometimes a woman's the total lifetime blood loss, bone loss of a woman would occur in the first 5 years after menopause. So there are certain women who very rapidly lose bone, and if you are one of those types at menopause, within a few years your bone can become so weak that you can get a fracture. So menopause is a time to watch out. And what can this osteoporosis lead to? Now you can have fractures in the spine, which is the most common bone affected. I showed you how the vertebrae get affected, the backbone gets affected because of osteoporosis. So maximum brunt is bone by the spine, followed by the hip, then the wrist, and then shoulder, ankle, and other bones. This is classically a young person, a middle-aged person, and an old person. A young person has a straight back. When you look at these old people, they are walking with this kind of the hunchback or the hump, or it's called dowager's hump, and that is because of osteoporosis, and we call it the osteoporosis continuum. So this is a lady who's just become menopausal, and then as she progresses into postmenopausal period, uh, gradually the spine, it gets bent, and then they get this hump, and that is the actually the multiple fractures which the backbone has sustained to give rise to this deformity and loss of height. And there are people, when it is because of steroids, there are people who have spent decades in bedridden in the wheelchair because of weak bones, frequent fractures, and weak muscles. Now, you would have seen the what is called as the domino effect. At the cycle stand, if one cycle falls, then they keep on falling. We call it fracture cascade as well. In osteoporosis, one fracture begets another. So anybody who has one fracture has us worried as orthopedic surgeons, because then we know that more fractures will come calling now. So if you had a one fracture in the spine, your risk of another fracture in the spine becomes 5 times higher. If you have had two or more, it goes to more than 12 times. And not only that, a fracture in the spine can also double the risk of fracture in the hip. So remember, one hip fracture begets another hip fracture, and that's a problem. So if a woman has had one fracture in the spine, the risk of having another one within a period of 1 year is 20%. And then you can get the wrist fractures. They are also very common. They occur in younger people, and we'll talk about it. And this is the hip fracture. This is your thigh bone, and this is the area of the hip, and this is the neck. And the least it will do is, if it occurs, is to leave a stick in your hand. So it can be very disabling. A lot of people die because of that, and it doesn't spare anyone. Those of you who recognize this is the shooter Dadi, the lady who made name for herself by winning championships in the later years of her life. And even such tough people are not immune to get hip fractures, and that would actually be the thing to be concerned about. A hip fracture may take away your life. Even in the best centers in the world, at least 1 out of 5 patients to 1 out of 3 patients may lose his or her life because of the hip fracture. And that is what you have to remember. And only about 20% are able to get to the same level at which they were before the fracture occurred. Now, this is a very interesting slide I want you to concentrate on. What you see here is the number of wrist fractures and the number of hip fractures. These are the wrist fractures, right? So you see that the wrist fractures occur around the middle age, around 40s, 50s or so, and then they remain more or less flat. These are the hip fractures. So they are the people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s don't get hip fracture. And then suddenly there's a spurt in the hip fracture. And this has got a very important message here. When you are young, fit, alert, right? Quick on your feet. If you fall, you quickly break your fall by putting your hand down. So what happens is you land on your wrist and you break your wrist, but you don't break your hip and you don't break your spine, right? When you get old, your reflexes are not so sharp. So when you fall, you are not quick enough, you're not nimble enough to put your hand to break your fall. You land sideways and break your hip. So the message is, the fitter you are, the more mentally alert you are, the more strong muscles you have, the better reflexes you have, the less are the chances that you will get the life-threatening hip fracture, and you will possibly get a wrist fracture, which will not kill you, although it will put you in plaster, but will not put you in the bed. So it's extremely important to be, mentally alert and physically, fit. Now, osteoporosis in India is among the highest in the world because we have genetically poorer bone. They occur 10 to 15 years earlier, and we have deficiency of calcium and vitamin D. So it's very important to realize the importance of prevention, early detection, and effective treatment. So you have to take proactive steps to prevent it and to detect it early. So first of all, you have to know what predisposes you to weak bones, and these factors can be modifiable or non-modifiable. For example, I just not told you, women are more at risk. The black Africans are actually quite immune to it. They are not predisposed to it at all. On the other hand, Caucasians and even Indians to some extent are more prone. Family history, I told you, if the mother has it, the daughter is more likely to have it. Advancing age, if you have had a previous fracture, you can't help it. But these are the factors which will predispose you, but you cannot help them. However, what you can help is stop smoking, do not abuse alcohol, do not use too much of these cola drinks, inadequate physical activity, lack of calcium intake, low vitamin D, bone robbing medications like steroid, the hormonal deficiency. These are the factors which can be modified and can be neutralized to some extent. Now, this is a 1 minute osteoporosis test, which has got 10 questions. For women, only 9 are pertinent. And this is available on the website of International Osteoporosis Foundation, IOF. Essentially, it asks about whether your parents had a hip fracture, whether you have had a fracture, whether you have been given steroids, whether you have lost height. How do you lose height? I told you, which means that you are having osteoporosis in the spine, which has caused your spine to slowly get crushed and then you lose height. Ladies would have realized their petticoats become shorter as they get old. Now, if you drink regularly, heavily, if you smoke regularly, if you suffer from something which interferes with absorption of the important calcium, vitamin D, etc., from your intestines, if you have undergone premature menopause, or you have had a menopause for a amenorrhea or an absence of periods for a reason other than pregnancy or menopause, meaning thereby any hormonal abnormality, then you are at risk. So other thing which comes with it is if you are an old woman, postmenopausal woman with risk factors, which I told you, if there's a medical history or social history, if you have had height loss, back pain, deformity, and you have a risk of falling, maybe you're a good candidate for testing the bone density. Now, this is a machine which tests your bone density. And what is done is we assess the density of your bone in your spine and in the hip, two areas which are most prone and also where it can be accurately assessed. Now, this is what a report looks like. Essentially, at the end of the report, it will tell you what is your risk of getting a fracture. If you are in this green area here, it means that you are in the green area, you mean it is you have a low risk. If you are yellow, you have to be cautious, and if it is red, then it is osteoporosis and you are at a high risk. Now, we can also during the bone density measurement look at your spine and see you have suffered fractures in the spine or not. Surprisingly, most of these fractures, are just we call them silent or incident because they are just detected. Somebody may have a fracture and may not even come to know, will not tell us that I had any injury and because of that there was a fracture. So remember that without having any symptom, what I told you earlier, silent thief, you can have major disruption of the integrity of your spine without having any pain or any incident. And there are certain tools which can look at some of these things like bone mineral density, bone density, and then it can compute the 10-year probability of fractures. And that can be used to decide if you are a low risk, then nothing needs to be done. But if you are a high risk here, will need to be treated. That is one of the tools we use for deciding which patient needs treatment. So about the prevention and non-pharmacological treatment, it starts with taking enough calcium, which is 1200 to 1500 milligram per day, vitamin D, 800 to 1200 international units, then exercise, prevent falls, gain weight to some extent, not unregulated, and stop smoking. So this is a staircase which starts with at the base with avoiding harmful habits, BMD testing if required, active lifestyle, regularly vitamin D through sunshine and oral supplements, and healthy diet. Remember, you are the people who are taking care of families, right? So when they you need to look after yourself, be your own friend, respect your body. And This is my favorite actress, but I sort of have a love-hate relationship with her because she's the one who promoted a size zero. Now, a size zero is something which is a great facilitator, or it invites osteoporosis. When you are thin and lean, not only the level of estrogens or the female hormones in your blood goes down, seriously affecting the muscles and the bone. But if you fall, you have hardly any cushion and you are much more likely to break the bones as compared to a person who's a little more plump and having some fat under the skin. The calcium and vitamin D are the key nutrients for bone health. Calcium makes your bones strong and it reduces the risk of fracture. The vitamin D reduces the risk of fall. And there is, and I'll talk more about this milk thing and the dairy. But this is the best thing you can do for your bone is to use dairy. And this is generally the requirement of the calcium in your body. It starts right from 0 to 6 months when you need 210 milligram to older years when you need 1000 to 1200 milligram. And remember that milk or fortified orange juice has got 1 milligram calcium per ml. If you take a 300 ml serving, you will be getting about 300 milligram of calcium in that diet. So you can see the biggest source of calcium is dairy product, milk and milk product. And then there are fortified foods, which unfortunately are not readily available here. But then it includes a lot of non-vegetarian food, which I understand there's a large population in among Indians who do not take non-vegetarian food, so they are deprived of this. And then, of course, there are the supplements. So, you need about 1200 milligrams of calcium per day and about 800 international units of vitamin D per day. So, it's a very easy way to calculate how much calcium you are taking in a day. So, if you drink 8 ounces of milk, you get about 300 milligram, just over 1 milligram per ml. If you don't like milk, doesn't matter. You can have yogurt. 8 ounces will have 400 milligram. You can have cheese. 1 ounce will have 200 milligram. You will get only 250 milligram from non-dairy sources. So all other things you might have heard, the green vegetables, the lentils, everything, the pulses, they will not give you more than 150 to 200 or 250 milligram of calcium. Then, of course, like I said, the vitamin D fortified milk, and then the cereals, egg yolk, salt water, fish, and liver are the sources of vitamin D. But a vegetarian who doesn't drink milk is my worst nightmare because they are the people who are worst hit. So remember, it is the magic of the milk. Remember, that's the first food you get when you land in this world. Don't forget that. Don't get develop an attitude and say no, I don't like milk. And that's very common. If you don't like milk, I'm sure you can add something to it. You can have badam milk, and if you can put Bonvita or Horlicks or something. If you don't like that, also you can use the yogurt or the cheese, like I told you. And somebody once said, and I put it on a cartoon, the only way to make the youngsters these days drink milk is to put it in a can and add some fizz to it because they will not like to drink anything which doesn't come in a can and doesn't have a fizz. So a lot of people ask me, how can I persuade my daughter to drink milk instead of soda? So the sodas are, or all kinds of colas, they are harmful for your bones. Remember that, they do cause a loss of calcium from the bone, and you will have to offer them the various variations in which you can get some milk in them. But not, if not, you can use the calcium fortified juices and cereals and low fat cheeses and yogurt. If you are worried about being fat, right, then there are options which are not fattening. So they can use skim milk, they can use low fat cheese and calcium fortified juices, like I said. And it has to be done. This is now about a picture which is about 15 years old. But then, it's like I said, that it is this age group which needs to be primed to have milk, because that's when you are making bones and achieving your peak bone mass. Do you need a calcium supplement? You can use all these calculations depending on what I showed you. But my formula in my outpatient is very simple. I ask patient, do you take milk and milk products? If they take, I take two, give them one 250 milligram tablet. If they don't, I give them two in a day. Remember, it's always good to give calcium in small doses and not have 1 gram or 1.25 gram at one go. And then vitamin D, of course, now actually is being recommended in a higher dosage than what is shown here. But remember, what we get from the sunlight is not enough because we are not being exposed to sunlight the right way and in the right dose. If you are inside the room and the sunlight is coming through the glass, it doesn't work. If it is coming through the car window, it doesn't work. You have to be exposed, your face, neck, upper part of the trunk, the arms have to be exposed for at least 45 minutes between 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock for you to get sufficient vitamin D, and that too is prevented by the dark complexion of our skin. And remember, I know many of you use sunscreens when you go out, and no sunscreen worth its name will let any of the rays inside your skin which have any efficiency at making the vitamin D. So anything above an SPF of 7 is going to stop vitamin D formation. So the best thing is, you can it's up to you. You can take benefit of the sun, or you can just take supplements, which is a much better option because we have to have cloud-free sunshine. We may need long hours, which these are the hours which are actually good for making the vitamin D. But then you should be exposed that way. You have to change your lifestyle. I just now showed you your bones are like a bank. You have to deposit during the first 25, 30 years of your life and try to maintain it with the healthy lifestyle. But then all these bad habits or bone harming habits I told you will be depleting this bank. And if the bank goes into red, this structure will crumble and you will fall down. And remember, we don't have this problem as grave in rural areas because there people do a lot of physical work. They carry weights. They work in the fields. They drink a lot of milk. They work and they have a good diet. This is an example. I mean, I can't imagine any of the uh, urban women even changing the car tires on the road. Not that I expect them to do, but just the point I'm emphasizing here is that those who are physically active and do this kind of activity are definitely going to have stronger bones than the ones who are sedentary. And then, of course, it's important to do exercise, and you can all use the 21-90 rule, which means that it takes 21 days to create a habit and it takes 90 days to create a lifestyle. Now, if you pledge, like everybody does on a New Year day, but then more seriously, if you pledge to change your habits and change your lifestyle, be prepared for working at least that long, and don't say that you misunderstood what it meant. What does an exercise do? Exercise improves your bone density. It maintains or increases the bone density even, and it increases the muscles, so you are less likely to fall. It prevents deformity of the back. It keeps you well balanced and agile, and it reduces the risk of fall-related fractures. And nobody is asking you to become a world champion. You're not going for perfection, but then what you have to do is start gradually, start slowly, and gradually you build up, and that's what is required. Even simple walking is sufficient and best for bone health because what works for bone is you have to put weight on your bones. So when you are swimming, you are making your muscles stronger, but you're not making your bones stronger because the only thing which will make your bones stronger is putting weight on your bones. And the advantages of walking, as Hippocrates said, the walking is man's best medicine. So the triad of good health is walking, good sleep, and healthy diet. And half an hour of walk every day will even keep you mentally healthy. And many of us just, particularly during the lockdown, just walk to the kitchen to see what else is there in the fridge, which can take care of our lonely mouth, which is called a lonely mouth syndrome, which means you get an urge to eat something because you think your mouth is lonely, and there's nothing inside your mouth. But then the price you pay for not exercising and taking the excuse of busy schedule is actually can be almost fatal. So there are different gates of exercises for different ages, for the growing years, for healthy adults, for people who have got weak bones, people with osteoporosis without fractures, and people with osteoporosis with fracture. Excuse me. So there are young people can do high impact exercises. They can do anaerobic dance, running, stair climbing, fitness walking, kickboxing, tennis, squash. Everything works. Low impact exercises are walking, step aerobics, and working on the trampoline or a rebounder, as you see here. Step aerobics are very good. You can do that. They improve your coordination. You can get the physio ball or a gym ball or a fit ball, and you can do a lot of the exercises with the gym ball, but not advisable for older people with the joint conditions. It's just for young and fit. You can do resistance training with free weights, TheraBand, gym machine, Pilates, gym ball, Tai Chi. You can do flexibility training or stretching that keeps your muscles in good shape. Yoga and Pilates are important. Strengthening exercises are very good. You can do some lunges if your knees are not bad. This the gluteal crunch or the bridging is a good exercise. It can be done very easily. Then you can do some trunk exercises. Then this is extremely important. You must do balance exercise because if your balancing mechanism is strong, you will prevent a fall, and you that may actually prevent a life-threatening fracture or hospitalization, to say the least. So balance and fall prevention is extremely important because even if you have weak bones, if you don't fall, the chances that you will break it are also very little. So you have to make your house fall proof, as I'll tell you. There are some special equipments like we have like this in our hospital. It's a very smart balance master, and you can actually load different games, and you can play games by shifting your weight to improve your balance and the stability. This is one of the important causes for fall and slip, and you must make sure that you modify your shoe if you have to. But then if you're likely to walk on some slippery ground, just spraying some hairspray on the sole can help, or you can actually stick this kind of tape there. And these kind of things are actually, obviously, you have to be very very careful. The bathrooms you must enter very carefully if you want to walk out, and you must have all seen that there are skid proof mats and special provisions in the bathroom to prevent the slipping and falling. There are such things called hip protectors. This is the one we designed with IIT Delhi, but you can wear them around this so that when you fall, you don't take the fall on this part of the bone and end up breaking your hip. Must reduce the risk of fall, use anchors, rugs, no objects on the floor. The bathroom floors must be dry. There should be minimum clutter. There should be no loose rugs, loose wires, handrails. There should be light at night. There should be light in the stairway. And the shoes must be low heel and balanced shoes. And if there's any wet floor, avoid that. And then it's always good to put a caution that it's a wet floor. You can test your balance yourself, whether you are prone to fall or not. You can just do the simple test. Can you stand on your one leg for 30 seconds? Are you able to keep walking when you talk? You can actually get up, walk for 6 meters, come back and sit again on the chair and see how many seconds you took. And if you take long, it means that your balance is not so good. You can just stand and shut your eyes and see if you feel giddy, you are prone to fall. So you are prone to fall if your eyesight is not good, if your hearing is not good. If you have fallen once, you are very prone to fall. Be very, very careful. If you, like I told you, if you take long time to get up from chair and walk, if you keep on tripping and colliding with people, if you take medications which make you drowsy, if your blood pressure sustains a fall when you suddenly get up from a lying down or sitting position, and then of course, if you are mentally upset or distressed, you are more likely to fall. There's something we call as a lazy exercise. You can do it at home. You can do when you're traveling to work, at workplace, while doing household activities. For example, you have a water bottle in the car. You are standing at the red light for 2 minutes. You can actually put that bottle between your thighs and you can squeeze it. You are actually standing next to the microwave at home. waiting for 2 to 3 minutes when something is cooking. You can use that time to just, tighten your muscles, move your joints, do some activities. So if you are willing, you will find opportunity to just work your muscles and make yourself stronger. Who should be careful while exercising? Those who have high blood pressure, those who have heart problems, diabetics, obese patients, and patients with arthritis of the joints. Movements to be specifically avoided by people with weak bones are high impact exercises, jumping, sudden twisting, sudden bending, sudden jerking movements, lifting loads overhead, or bending forward and lifting heavy weights. So, this is a book I authored on exercises for bone health. It shows you green ones can be done, red ones are not to be done, and the yellow ones are the ones which can be done with caution. And it gives you the types of exercises on this side and the different age groups. So if you look at the osteoporotic people who have already got a fracture, they should not be doing high impact exercises or strength training exercises or even medium impact or aerobic exercises or the rebounding exercises. They should be careful with the strength training and flexibility, but they can do the Pilate and yoga and walking. There are podcasts available on the internet about this kind of problem, and articles are available. And we have from Indian Society of Bone and Mineral Research, we have even published book on calcium-rich recipes. And there's a book on the bone health, which is translated in 4 languages. And then there are certain criteria for pharmacological treatment. That is to give you medicine. Now, you need medicines if either your bone density is very low on testing, or it is your bones are weak, but you are not osteoporotic, but you have risk factors like, you have early menopause, or you have had a fracture, or your mother had a fracture, those kinds of things. And there are a whole range of medicines available which your doctor can choose for you. Just to let you know that this is a global health problem. So all over the world, there's a lot of research going on trying to find the newer drugs and better drugs than what we have. A quick word about decoding some of the myths regarding the bone health in women. The first one is I am thin, so I cannot get bone and joint problem, because many people tend to think that the bones and joints are damaged in only those people who are overweight. I have told you, you are more prone to osteoporosis and fractures. Second thing is to accept that osteoporosis is same as aging. So as we grow old, our bones will become weak. No, it's not aging. It's a disease which occurs because of certain reasons and abnormalities of hormones or the hormonal changes at the time of menopause or because of certain drugs. So it is not a part of aging and it is treatable. Osteoporosis occurs only in old age? Definitely not. If you have been put on steroids even in your young age, if you have poor calcium intake, if you eat junk food, you smoke, you drink, you don't exercise, you don't have any exposure to sunlight, and like I said, early menopause, you can get it during younger years. I will know when I get osteoporosis. Most people think that the osteoporosis will tell them somehow that their bones are becoming weak. Unfortunately, no. There is no sign of a weak bone. The only time it will betray itself, show itself, is when you get a fracture. So the osteoporosis will not show itself. So it can be detected just on after a fracture or when the bone density testing is done. Bone density test can always tell me if I'm at risk. Unfortunately, no, because of again the things like risk factors. So, what is a more important tool is what I showed you, like a Frax tool, which does take into consideration the bone density, but other things like risk factors, like I told you earlier, will determine. So, more. A lot of people actually get fractures when they are not even osteoporotic but just have weak bones. So remember that you don't have to have an osteoporosis written on your report to make you prone to fractures. If you have a family history and you drink, you smoke, you have an early menopause, had your ovaries removed, or you take steroid, it can happen otherwise also. We live in a sunlit country. Where's the question of vitamin D deficiency? So I have told you already, we have dark complexion. We do everything to stop sunlight from getting to us, whether it is remaining indoors or using the sunscreens or our dark skin. And then at old age, you have no fat under the skin when the skin is wrinkled. And remember, sunlight is able to do this magic of making vitamin D only because there is fat under the skin. This sunlight, those sun rays act on those on that cholesterol under the skin and change it into vitamin D. So if your skin is wrinkled, if your skin is not exposed, if the skin has become old, inefficient, if it is there's no fat under the skin, even sunlight cannot make vitamin D, right? So the exercises increase the risk of fracture? Definitely not. Actually, the opposite is true. Exercise is the best prevention against weak bones. If I'm physically active, I don't need exercises. I often hear this argument, Doc Sab, I'm on my feet whole day. I do so much of work. Where is the need for exercises? मेरी तो सारे दिन exercise होती रहती है. I exercise the whole day because I do all these chores, or I work and I do everything. Now that's wrong, because what you are doing is exertion, and there's a difference between the exertion and exercise, because exertion causes stress and exercise de-stresses you. The exertion is not structured, it is training your body. It is not by choice, it's not focused. And uh, and then the only thing in exertion does is possibly increase your endurance, but it also puts you at risk for some overuse injuries. On the other hand, a properly structured exercise will do everything. It will not only increase your strength, it will increase your flexibility, it will increase your endurance. And then remember, exercise is exercise. Exercise has to be done during a time devoted to exercise, and your household work is not a substitute for exercise. Because I have osteoarthritis and knee pain, I cannot walk, so my weight is increasing. This myth has been belied, where people have had operations on the knee replacement, and after knee replacement, when their mobility was increased, still they did not lose any weight, thus proving that it has got more to do with your food habits and your dietary habits and lifestyle than anything else. My diet doesn't have much effect on my bone. I've already told you that excessive salt, excessive soda, and excessive caffeine can give damage your bones, and that damage will not be offset by doing exercises. So think that the best think of the best foods for the strong bones and eat right. A lot of people think that if I take calcium, I will get kidney stone. Quite the opposite. There's something called calcium paradox. I told you calcium is something which is vital for functioning of the body, for functioning of your brain, nerves, heart, muscles, everything. And if you don't take calcium, the body will remove calcium from the bones, making the bones weak. But this calcium which comes out, that is actually more likely or more prone to form stones. So not having calcium is not the remedy for or not a prevention for having stones. On the other hand, if you have kidney stones, then you should definitely take a smaller dose of calcium in the supplements. Now, some people get tests done when they are having joint pains, and they feel that it shows the rheumatoid arthritis. So that's a common test called rheumatoid factor, which is often tested when you're having aches and pains and your doctor advises, and that shows rheumatoid factor positive, and you think that you are positive because then it means that you are rheumatoid. It's not true, because the positive test does not always mean rheumatoid arthritis, and a negative test does not always mean that you don't have rheumatoid arthritis. And it is actually needs an expert to accurately diagnose whether you have arthritis or not. Just don't go for a positive rheumatoid factor test. And the last one is the TB. The second last one is that the TB occurs only in poor people and causes classical symptoms. TB infection of the bones and joints is no more a disease restricted to people of low socioeconomic status, and it does not now cause those classical symptoms which we used to see, like fever, weight loss, or loss of appetite. Somebody can have tuberculosis with even when the person is affluent, and can have tuberculosis without any classical symptoms. The last one, I have already told you, I never had any fall. How can my spine be fractured? That's because we have incident fractures. This lady might have never have experienced any backache, but still would have multiple fractures in the spine. That is because of the osteoporosis. So watch for a reduction in the height and watch for stooping forward. To summarize, It's never too late to take care of your bone health. You should go for bone density testing by prescription. Think of the risk factors. Do you have any of them? Be aware of anything which can damage your bone health. No bad food habit, no obesity. Protect your cartilage and prevent osteoarthritis. Exercise regularly, use fall precaution, don't be obsessed with size zero, and speak to medical professional about medication for osteoporosis. And that's when, like I said, you are the homemakers, or you hold the unit of family, or you hold families together, or you mean a world to your parents. You must not only be healthy physically, but then you must also feel good about yourself, because the entire health of the society really depends on you, and you must make it your duty to protect your structure. I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much for that very informative session, Dr. Malhotra. I think now we can move to taking questions from the audience. Um I do request the audience, whoever's interested in asking questions live, they can click on the button of ask to speak. And if you drop your question, we will let you ask your question directly on this session. In the meanwhile, until we get some of those requests, I would like to ask a few questions. Shilpi Narang has asked, till what age should children drink milk? And I want to follow
So yeah, so if you're talking about lactation, the lactation should be is a recommended that it should be continued as long as possible, but they'll need some supplemental meal in addition. But otherwise, I think milk, if you don't have major issues with drinking milk, milk is good for all ages as far as bones are concerned, because that is something where whatever calcium, you see, the problem with calcium which you take otherwise is that a small fraction of it gets absorbed. The dairy calcium is the only calcium which gets absorbed completely. If I drink 300 ml milk or a glass of milk, I know I've got those 300 which have gone in my body. It's most natural form of calcium.
And it is said that as we grow older, women absorb lesser calcium from their milk intake. And after some point, I was told recently that there is no point of a person of my age maybe drinking 1 cup of milk, which is a practice that I have. Is that true or is that a myth?
So it is true that with aging, the every system goes down, your absorption of your calcium becomes less. But we can always help that by giving a supplemental dose of vitamin D. So vitamin D can help absorb calcium from the intestines. We hardly ever need to give calcium, vitamin D by any other route, even if you are 100 years old. So we can change the formulation if your kidney is not working properly, or if your liver is not working properly, or if your intestines are not working properly. We can find out ways to get calcium and vitamin D in your body, but most of the times it is the oral route which is the best route.
All right. We've also been asked, what are the sources of calcium that exist if you're allergic to milk? Just to that question, Reshu, Dr. Malhotra had shared a slide in his deck about the different kinds of food. But we have also been asked a lot of questions about mushrooms for some reason. Seems to be a popular contender for a source of calcium. So I just thought I'll hand it over you to speak about whether mushrooms really do have extra.
All these the most important thing about these elements is their what we call as bioavailability. So what matters is not what how much calcium it has. What matters is how much of it can be absorbed by your body. You would have heard that the spinach contains a lot of iron, but many of you may not know that the iron in the spinach is hardly ever absorbed. It is not in a form which can be taken up in our body. Same way, the greens, the many of the vegetables have calcium, but it's not in a bioabsorbable form. See, just by eating mushrooms, greens, vegetables, pulses, you will not get your 800 to 1000 milligram of calcium even if you eat half a kg of mushrooms. So my formula is very simple, and I can tell you the best is to keep the thing simple. If you take milk or milk products, take one tablet, which 250 milligrams should be good enough. If you don't take it, then take it twice.
Okay, all right. We have received a question about consuming vitamin D3 during pregnancy? How much of it would be the accurate or the correct amount to consume?
So the first thing is that you should not take vitamin D during the first trimester. You should not take any, generally, most of the things you should not worry about in the first trimester, because you don't want to take anything which can have anything to do with the well-being of baby when the baby's body is being formed. However, after the first trimester, you should take about 1000 to 1200 international units of vitamin D, and and almost an equal amount of calcium.
All right. Just waiting for some of our audience members to maybe ask, raise their hand to like ask. You can click on the button of ask to speak. I can then unmute you so you can ask your questions. In the meanwhile, we do have a question from I think Sandeep. He's asking a question on vitamin B6, B9, and B12 required in pregnancy. Again, vitamins, but this is a question on pregnancy and requirement for vitamins. Sandeep, this is unfortunately.
Hello,
Hello, sorry.
Sanjana.
Yeah, Doctor.
Can
Sorry.
I ask you something?
Yes.
Do you take vitamin D supplement?
Once in a while when my doctor recommends. Usually.
So I take, and that's because I know that I cannot get enough vitamin D by going out in sun, which I hardly do. And I told you the formula that you cannot get enough exposure, and then we have a dark skin Indians. We don't absorb so much of radiation or the rays which are needed. So I think having uh, say 60,000 international units once in a month will take care of our vitamin D requirements throughout the month. So that's a good formula, right? If you're not deficient, once a month, 60,000 units taken with a glass of milk, preferably, will take care of all the requirement. And if you think that you are young, you don't need it, or you think that you do go out in sun, or you think it doesn't work that way, because we will take much longer time, and then we are not out in sun enough. So vitamin D supplementation is something for everyone.
Okay. Uh, we have questions about whether people can consume calcium all throughout their life, even when they're like post 60. I think, basis today's conversation, that would mean you always have to constantly make sure that you're supplementing calcium, or would you say there's an age after which people have to be
So
considered?
there is no age at which you don't need calcium, but what I have been saying is that if you have kidney stone, for instance, then you don't take uh, high doses of calcium supplements. Just one tablet a day will be enough, and you can ask your doctor which preparation you can take, because there are certain preparations which are better suited for patients with kidney stones, right? So you need, and then second thing is that if you have a reason that the iron, calcium, these are elements. You would know that when women take iron, they either get constipation or they get diarrhea. It's very difficult to find iron preparation which doesn't trouble your system. And many times you have to try several preparations before you settle down on a preparation which you can adjust to, or which your body accepts. A calcium is an element like iron. It can cause a little bit of cramp in the stomach, a little, upset tummy or something. So you may have to try 3 or 4 different types of calcium before you arrive at the formulation which is good for you. But if you have any issue with taking calcium supplement, then you go for natural sources. So go for the dairy. Try to get your calcium from the dairy rather than calcium tablet. If you're not able to digest any, try to improve that intake, and concentrate on things like broccoli and greens and mushrooms and pulses. They give you smaller amount, and they are less bioavailable, but then rely on that.
Yeah. So, Doctor, right now we're going to take a few live questions. We've got Dr. Shalini Gupta. I'm going to be unmuting you, Shalini, and after that you can ask your question.
Okay, good evening, sir. Just want, sorry, I missed the earlier part of your talk. So just wanted to ask which salt of calcium is best absorbed? So lots of confusion sometimes.
So best calcium which is absorbed is the calcium in the milk, right? But then, we have calcium preparations with different absorption. I told you that, that 20%, 25%, 30%, that's about all that will get absorbed. But to me, that is not an important consideration. For me, the important consideration, which I said just now, was what your body can digest. If you can take it without upsetting your tummy, any preparation is good enough, right? And if you have any doubt about whether to take it before meals, after meals, with meals, any calcium can be had with meals. Just remember that.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
So calcium carbonate or any other sometimes the gallstone issues. Sometimes we are worried about. Is it
That's
true?
why I said. That's why I said that if you have kidney stones, then you are advised not to take calcium carbonate. So you can take the calcium citrate malate kind of preparations. There are certain preparations. That's why I briefly hinted that you can ask your doctor what type of calcium you take. So the calcium citrate malate is less likely to sort of create problem with these stones in your urinary tract. So you can take that kind of preparation. You're right that if somebody has stones, then you should best avoid the calcium carbonate. And I hinted about that short while ago that if you have stones, take a smaller dose or rely on dairy and ask your doctors which calcium to take.
Now we have Ragini Gandhi. I'm going to be unmuting her. Hi, Ragini. You can ask your question. I think she can. Ragini, can you hear us? We will go to our next question. We have Priyanka Jha with the next question. Hi, Priyanka. Would you like to ask a question to Dr. Malhotra? I think we're facing few technical issues. Next, we do have a question by Kavita Varma.
Oh,
Doctor,
yeah, okay.
through the long list of questions if you feel like sorting through them. But Kavita Varma, I'm muting you in case you'd like to ask your question. Hi, Kavita. Hi. Hello.
Am I on?
Yes, you are.
So, good evening, Dr. Saab, and it was nice listening to you, and you have covered all aspects that we face challenge with day to day, anyone who is little health conscious. So, I have actually posted my question. It is regarding.
Kavita, your voice is a little too soft. Can you speak up a little?
Is it okay now?
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you. Please tell.
Yes, so this is regarding my mother-in-law who had hip surgery 6 months back. She has started moving with walker and indoor she, takes walk room to room. So just as a daughter-in-law, I wanted to, because this is a nice platform for me to talk to you. I just wanted any advice you would like to give uh, with respect to
So,
her diet.
yeah.
She doesn't like to have milk, and she is also prone to catching cold very often. So she doesn't like yogurt also. So these are two
Okay.
challenges.
So, okay, I think I'll take this opportunity to answer some of the questions which are on the chat box also. Starting with Kavita's question. So, the important thing is, see, your mother-in-law has suffered one hip fracture. Now, you don't need any more test or any more certificate to know that she's osteoporotic. So, she has to be treated for osteoporosis. The first thing is that when we have a patient with osteoporosis, we ask them to walk as much as possible because you would have seen the sedentary lifestyle is one of the causes for osteoporosis. So, if we leave somebody in bed, they lose bone very rapidly and their bones get even weaker. So, one, she has to walk. Second, she should try to build up her muscles, do some exercises. She has to take calcium and vitamin D. She can take milk. There's no problem. I have a question here which said milk is acidic and should we really take milk? It question is I'm going to include this question as a myth number 15 the next time when I talk about it. Although these 14 myths also I have talked made today only. But it is true that if you take very acidic food, it can actually lead to loss of some calcium from the bones. That is how the colas harm you actually. But the fact is that the milk acidity, the milk quickly gets curdled, the proteins get this thing, and our body is capable of handling some amount of acidity. On the other hand, the milk, always remember what is natural is best for your body. I told you that's the first meal you get when you arrive on the face of the earth. Don't discount that. And second thing is, if you are somehow not able to take it, then you can take it in any variety. And if you can't have it in any form, then you can actually take the supplement. There's a question about how to prevent osteoarthritis. Now, if your father or mother has had osteoarthritis, it is partly genetic. As I also believe obesity also to some extent, but maybe one family has got the same food habits or dietary habits, so it's not uncommon to have people of similar weight within the family. So I told you most important thing to save your knees from damages, to keep your weight in check. That's the most important. Don't injure your knee, strengthen your knee, and avoid the activities which damage your knee, like jumping, landing heavily on your feet, too many stairs, more than 15 stories in a day, running at a speed, fast sprinting more than 7 km per hour speed, which will put about 10 times your body weight on your knees, and squatting and sitting cross-legged are all those things which are going to harm your knees.
Thank you for that, doctor. So, just I think there are a few other questions more specific to injuries and accidents. I think in that case, something that Dr. Malhotra would suggest is you have to consult with your own personal doctor and make sure
I will say something about somebody said, I think I may have osteoporosis. And that is a thing which I think I'll reiterate. I said during my talk that you cannot say, I don't have osteoporosis because you don't feel anything. And similarly, you can't say, I have osteoporosis without any basis. You can suspect osteoporosis if your mother had osteoporosis or your mother had a hip fracture. Like we had Kiran talk to her about her mother-in-law. So her sister-in-law already is at risk because her mother has had a hip fracture. So if you have a parental history of osteoporosis fracture, if you have yourself a osteoporosis fracture, if you had late menarche, started having periods very late, early menopause, you had surgery to remove the uterus or the ovaries, or you are on steroids, or you are on alcohol, or smoking, and all those things or risk factors which make you prone, you are advised to get a bone density done, which will tell the diagnosis of osteoporosis can be only by one of the two ways. Either your bone density shows that you are an osteoporotic, or you have a fracture with a trivial fall. And what is a trivial fall? A fall from standing height. You did not fall from a height, you just slipped and fell and broke a bone. One has to look at you as a possibly a candidate who has got osteoporosis. Having some stiffness in the morning in the hands is not a feature of osteoporosis. That is more likely getting up in the morning, finding some stiffness in the hand is possibly cervical spondylosis. If I ask her further, she will tell me that occasionally she gets pain in the neck or she gets pins and needle sensations in the hands. And those are the things which will manifest themselves as some amount of stiffness in the morning after getting up. That's spondylosis, which I showed you, which happens in the neck and the low back and is not osteoporosis. Osteoporosis may be very severe even without causing any problem whatsoever in your body, and the first manifestation may be a fracture.
All right. Thank you for that.
Remember the silent thief? Remember the silent thief?
Yes. Thank you so much for that, doctor. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. And so I'm going to have to request for everyone who has missed out or has come late to the session, you can go back to Women Entrepreneurship Platform's Facebook page or YouTube page. You'll find this video recording available on both. Before I close off, I would like to thank Dr. Malhotra for taking out the time, speaking to the audience, telling us all about our health and telling us the things that we need to do to keep in mind how we need to maintain ourselves and the things that we should avoid. Thank you so much, Dr. Malhotra.
Thank you, Sanjana, and thank you all the viewers. I really enjoyed interacting with everyone. Thank you so much.